Your wife hurts mommy when you leave. My maid's toddler whispered, then I found the footage she hid. The little girl's whisper stopped Jack Whitman cold on his own front porch. 4 years old, barely tall enough to reach his knee, she cupped her tiny hands around his ear and said the last thing he expected to hear. Mommy told me hide. Your wife hurts mommy when you leave. Behind her, his wife Grace stood frozen, her hand pressed to her chest. The maid, Sarah, went pale as snow. Jack felt his stomach drop. He had no idea what was happening inside his own house. But he was about to find out everything. Jack Whitman had spent 20 years building a real estate company from a single rented office to 3 states. He worked long hours and traveled often, but he always came home to the same quiet house on Maple Street, the one with the wraparound porch his father helped him build. Sarah Coleman had cleaned that house for 3 years. She was soft-spoken, careful, and always on time. When her daycare fell through, Jack told her to bring little Maya along. He liked hearing small feet running down the hallway. Maya left crayon drawings taped to his office door. Grace, his wife, smiled politely whenever Sarah was around, especially at dinner parties, always the perfect hostess. Jack trusted Grace completely. He trusted his home. But there was one thing Jack never noticed. Every single time his car pulled out of the driveway for a business trip, Sarah's smile disappeared before he even reached the end of the street. Small things started catching Jack's eye. Sarah began wearing long sleeves, even in July. She flinched when Grace raised her voice about a coffee stain on the counter. Maya's drawings changed too. Instead of suns and flowers, she drew a woman with tears, colored heavy in red crayon. Just her imagination, Grace said, waving it off with a laugh. One evening, Jack noticed a dark bruise on Sarah's wrist as she reached for the dish rack. She pulled her sleeve down fast and said she'd bumped it moving furniture. Jack wanted to believe her. Grace always had a reason ready. The house needed order. Sarah made mistakes. Standards mattered. Jack told himself his wife was simply particular, a woman who cared deeply about her home. But something felt wrong, a feeling he couldn't name. He caught Maya staring at her mother with worried eyes whenever Grace walked into the room. He didn't understand it yet. He only knew that peace in his house had quietly disappeared, and nobody was telling him why. The following month, Jack had to leave for a 2-week trip to close a deal in Denver. The night before he left, Maya wrapped her small arms around his leg and wouldn't let go. "Don't go," she whispered. "Please don't go." He laughed it off, thinking she just missed him during his trips. He kissed her head and told her he'd be back soon. He had no idea what those words really meant. While he was away, Grace called twice a day, always cheerful, always calm. Sarah texted normal updates about the house. Everything looked fine on paper. Jack believed it, the way people believe what they want to believe. Then he remembered something. Months earlier, after a break-in scare in the neighborhood, he had installed a small security camera in the kitchen, angled toward the back door. He had forgotten about it completely. Sitting alone in his hotel room, he opened the app on his phone out of habit, expecting nothing but an empty kitchen. Instead, he saw a date from 3 days earlier. His thumb hovered over play. Something told him not to press it. Something else told him he had no choice. Jack pressed play. Grace stood in the kitchen, her face twisted with anger Jack had never seen before. She was gripping Sarah's arm, shouting about a chipped plate. Sarah apologized over and over, her voice shaking. Grace grabbed the plate and threw it into the sink so hard it shattered. "You're replaceable," Grace hissed. "One phone call and you lose everything. Your job. Your apartment. Everything for that little girl." Jack's hands went cold. He watched Grace do this again in another clip, and another. Weeks of it. Every time he left town, the same pattern repeated. He flew home early, without telling anyone. When he walked through the front door, Grace's smile faded the second she saw his face. He set his phone on the table and played the video. Silence filled the room. "Jack, I can explain." "Explain what?" he said quietly. Explain why you terrified a woman who has done nothing but take care of our home. Explain why our daughter isn't the only child hiding secrets in this house. Grace's composure finally cracked. Tears fell as she admitted the truth. Her business investments had failed months ago. She was drowning in stress and shame, and somehow, she had let it all pour onto the one person too afraid to speak up. It wasn't an excuse. But it was, finally, the truth. That night, Jack sat down with Sarah in the living room, Maya curled asleep against her mother's shoulder. He apologized for something he never even knew was happening under his own roof. You don't have to hide anymore, he told her gently. Not you, not Maya. Never again. Sarah wiped her eyes and nodded, unable to speak at first. She had carried the fear alone for months, terrified of losing the only income keeping her and her daughter afloat. Jack made sure that fear disappeared. He raised her pay, gave her a signed letter guaranteeing her position, and told her that from now on, his door was always open if anything ever felt wrong again. Grace didn't disappear from the story. She began therapy the following week, slowly learning to face the stress she had buried instead of releasing it onto someone powerless to stop her. Weeks later, she sat across from Sarah, and for the first time, said the word she should have said months earlier. I'm sorry. I was wrong. You deserved better. It wasn't a perfect ending. Healing rarely is. But slowly, the house on Maple Street filled with something it hadn't held in a long time, real peace. Maya no longer whispered warnings at the front door. Instead, she drew pictures of sunshine again, taping them proudly to Jack's office door, right where they belonged. Sometimes the smallest whisper from the smallest voice can uncover the biggest truth, and sometimes, it's the only thing brave enough to save a family from itself. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes kindness can change the world. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below.